Imagine a world where human secrets vanish like waves into the vast ocean. Every day, countless reports of missing persons pour in. Some return, others leave no trace but silence. But what if a mass disappearance occurs in a completely isolated place, far from any human presence or known danger? That's what we are revealing today. In this captivating story, we'll take you to a remote island in the heart of the ocean where three men disappeared under mysterious circumstances, leaving behind a riddle that baffled investigators for decades. It's the tale of the Flannan Lighthouse and its keepers who dissolved into nothingness. Deep off the rugged Scottish coast lies a mysterious group of islands, known as the Flannan Isles. There are 7 small islands about 30 kilometers from the mainland, named after an ancient saint from the 7th century. For centuries, these islands remained uninhabited, yet the residents of neighboring islands always viewed them with suspicion, as if they held a strange, unnatural secret. Many eerie legends were woven around them, especially due to the numerous fishing boats and merchant ships that sank near them. But not all legends were negative. Some tell of these islands possessing a supernatural power that grants sheep fertility and healing, but in return brings bad luck to anyone who spends the night there. In the late 19th century, specifically in 1896, the Northern Lighthouse Board decided to erect a lighthouse on one of these mysterious islands. The largest island, Moor, was chosen. The construction of this massive lighthouse took a full 4 years, and the harsh nature of the Atlantic Ocean posed an enormous challenge. Fierce waves hampered the delivery of raw materials, making every workday a true struggle. But determination triumphed, and in 1899 the lighthouse was lit for the first time. The lighthouse was an architectural masterpiece, but it lacked something vital: any wireless communication. The only connection to the mainland was through complex visual signals, monitored by an employee on another island, ready to report any malfunction.
4 keepers were assigned to oversee this isolated lighthouse. 3 would rotate on the island, while the 4th would be on leave on the mainland. James Ducat, the seasoned principal keeper, 43 years old, Thomas Marshall, the young assistant keeper, 28 years old, and Donald Macarthur, the assistant keeper, 40 years old. On December 7, 1900, Robert Muirhead, the superintendent of the keepers, left the island aboard a steamship. Ducat and Marshall bade him farewell from the east landing, while MacArthur remained in the lighthouse, adhering to the rule that the lighthouse must never be left unmanned. Muirhead did not know, as he waved goodbye, that this would be the last time he would see these men. What happened next would become one of the most intriguing disappearances in maritime history. On the night of December 15, 1900, an American steamship passed by Moor. Its captain, Captain Holman, noticed something strange and unsettling. The lighthouse light was out. This was unprecedented, as the Flannan Lighthouse was supposed to be brightly lit at all times. Immediately upon arriving at the port of Edinburgh, Holman reported the malfunction. Unfortunately, severe weather conditions prevented the immediate dispatch of a team to investigate. 5 days passed, and on December 20, the supply ship Hesperus was preparing for its routine trip to the lighthouse, carrying provisions and the 4th keeper, Joseph Moore, who was about to begin his shift. Joseph Moore lived on the Isle of Lewis, and his return to Moor meant relief for his 3 colleagues. However, severe weather conditions trapped the Hesperus in port for an additional 6 days, and it couldn't set sail until the morning of December 26th. Throughout the journey, Joseph was consumed by worry. He ate nothing and drank large quantities of coffee, pacing restlessly on the deck. Ever since he heard the news of the lighthouse being out on December 15, he felt something terrible must have happened. How could his colleagues, his friends, be well and the lighthouse be out at the same time? It simply didn't make sense.
As the Hesperus approached the east side of Moor, Captain James Harvey noticed something unusual. The island's flag was not hoisted. Joseph Moore, in turn, noticed the absence of the provision boxes from the landing, those boxes the keepers left to receive supplies. Even stranger, none of the keepers were waiting on the shore as usual. The anxiety in Joseph's heart grew. The Hesperus blew its horn 3 times, then fired a flare into the sky. But there was no response from the lighthouse. Amidst the cries of the gulls and the crashing waves against Alien Moor's rocky cliffs, an eerie and unsettling silence pervaded the island. Joseph Moore and the crew member McCormick disembarked at the East Landing, with Moore stepping into one of history's most baffling mysteries. Moore and McCormick tied up their boat, and Moore asked McCormick to stay put while he ascended to the lighthouse. Joseph noticed nothing unusual on the path leading to the lighthouse. Everything was in its place just as he had left it last time. But upon arriving, he found the outer gate locked, as well as the inner lighthouse door. Upon entering, Moore noticed that the stove was cold, as if it hadn't been lit for days. All the clocks had stopped. Moore searched room by room, looking for his colleagues. He found the beds made as if they had just woken up and left, but no one was there. He called out to them, but there was no answer. At that moment, Joseph knew something terrible had happened. He returned to McCormick on the shore and asked to go back to the Hesperus to inform the captain and request assistance with the investigation. Joseph Moore and 3 Hesperus crew members returned to the island to operate the lighthouse and begin the investigation. The Hesperus returned to the mainland to inform the Northern Lighthouse Board of the shocking news. The first thing the investigation team did was check the lighthouse light, expecting the bulb to be burned out. But to their surprise, the bulb was intact and ready for operation. This increased the investigators' confusion. The next day, they began a thorough search of the island. While the east side was intact, the west side was completely destroyed. The west landing was shattered, the box with the mooring ropes was missing, the ropes themselves were scattered on the rocks, and the iron fences were broken or entirely gone. The mystery of the damage at the west landing was quickly solved. The lighthouse logbook, where keepers recorded events, mentioned that this damage had indeed occurred earlier, but the mystery continued with the disappearance of the lifebuoy, which was securely tied to an iron fence 30 meters above sea level. Some assumed a giant wave had torn it off, while some doubted the possibility of a wave of that height. A keeper who later worked there confirmed seeing a wave 90 meters high. Adding to the enigma was the discovery of the logbook for the final days. The keepers had written in it that their morale was extremely low, and they were mentally exhausted due to continuous storms. What was strange was that there were no reports of severe storms in that period, raising the question, were these storms merely hallucinations? Another logbook was also found, written by Thomas Marshall, describing the storms as so terrifying that they prayed out of fear, despite the strength and robustness of the new lighthouse building. The last thing Thomas wrote was, "The storm is over, the sea is calm, God is over all." These records, even if true, do not provide a clear answer to the men's fate. With no other evidence on the island, the investigators' last hope turned to Roderick Mackenzie, the keeper stationed on the Isle of Great Bernera, whose duty it was to monitor the Eilean Mor lighthouse. When questioned, Mackenzie admitted that the lighthouse light had been out for a long time. It went out on December 7th, then came back on December 12th, and then went out again until December 26th, when Joseph Moore arrived. Despite the strangeness of this prolonged light outage, Mackenzie did not immediately notify the authorities. Perhaps if he had reported the problem earlier, the keeper's fate might have been different, and the incident would not have become a puzzle that has bewildered minds to this day.
With no answers, theories began to emerge. The first and most common theory is that the three men were swept away by powerful waves and drowned in the sea. This theory suggests that on a stormy day, a giant wave swept away the box of mooring ropes and the ropes themselves. Two of the keepers descended, as leaving the lighthouse unattended was forbidden, to try and retrieve them. While they were trying, another strong wave swept them away. The third keeper saw what happened and rushed to save them, perhaps forgetting his jacket in his haste. But higher, stronger waves swept all three into the sea. And due to the severity of the waves, their bodies were scattered, which explains why they were not found.
Another controversial theory links the disappearance to an ancient legend that warns against spending the night on the island. This theory suggests that isolation and staying on the island drove one or more of the keepers insane. Records indicate low morale, and perhaps the storms mentioned in the logs were merely hallucinations. This madness might have led them to a violent quarrel where one killed the others and threw their bodies into the sea, then leaped in after them. However, this theory remains weak due to the absence of any signs of violence inside or around the lighthouse. The last and most incredible theory is that what happened was supernatural. The legend says that when Joseph Moore arrived, an eerie silence paraded the island, and upon entering the lighthouse, 3 black birds flew from the roof. Proponents of this theory believe that these birds were the 3 keepers transformed as punishment for disturbing the spirits inhabiting the island. Of course, this theory falls outside the realm of scientific explanation. After this disappearance, the Eilean Mor Lighthouse continued to operate, staffed by other keepers until 1971. And throughout those decades, the story of the disappearance remained a terrifying mystery passed down by lighthouse keepers from generation to generation. Even today, more than 120 years after the disappearance, the vanishing of the 3 keepers remains a baffling enigma that has puzzled thousands of researchers and investigators over the years. No one has been able to provide a definitive answer to their fate. Thus, we come to the end of this fascinating story. What is your favorite theory, and do you think there's an undiscovered explanation? Thanks for watching History and its Stories. If you enjoyed the journey, give us a like, drop your thoughts in the comments, and hit that subscribe button for more tales from the past. Until next time, keep exploring, stay curious, and remember, history isn't just facts, it's full of unforgettable stories.